What's up, DC Nation? Welcome back to another video. And guys, if you like the video, give a big thumbs up in YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe because I release great DC content every day that you don't want to miss. Now guys, today I'm reviewing Batman number 91. Now guys, the last issue was pretty good, like most of the art, because George Remez's art is just really good. But the story itself, it kind of made the designer, he wasn't as great as a villain, and he didn't have like a great debut. Like Joker was awesome, and the villains were great, but in terms of like the designer and how they like built him up in these past like 5 issues, it didn't really go as well when he gets killed off in his debut. But now that he's back, this is the issue to see if he's actually a good villain. And guys, first off, I'm still not sold on him, alright? Like, I'm not sold on this villain at all. Now, I did see something interesting. I think it was reported by, by a site. They said that, hey, maybe that, the designer is actually Moriarty, who is, like, the nemesis of Sherlock Holmes. And guys, you remember Sherlock Holmes is actually in the DC Universe? If they revealed that Moriarty is actually the designer, that'd be really interesting. It actually kind of makes sense. Because remember in issue number 90, he said that he beat a detective before, so he knows about these things. And that would make sense that Moriarty beat Sherlock Holmes for a little bit. So now, in past Batman mythology, it showed Moriarty going against Batman. Like, that's actually been a thing. Like, there's 2 different types of Moriarty in the DC Universe, but it'd be really interesting if he was revealed as like the designer. Like, that'd be cool. But for now, that's not it. So far, all we know is it's this character who's built up as like, oh, this great like master planner. He's beaten Batman. He's beat a detective before. He's outwitted the greatest villains other than the Joker. But now he's come back to get revenge. And Batman can't keep up with all the stuff he's doing. Which, alright, it's a lot of telling, not showing, which we've grown accustomed to like James Tynion doing that, who's the writer of this comic. But still, he hasn't sold me at all. Like, his look looks cool. I know some of you guys in the comment section of my last review said, hey, the design looks kind of ridiculous. It doesn't look like a villain at all, which I can kind of see that, but I still like his look though. He does look cool. And when George Remez draws him, and even in this issue when he's drawn by like a different artist, he still looks cool, alright? But I'm still not sold on he hasn't has a backstory yet. We don't know who's behind the mask. Like, I honestly think that's going to determine it. When we find out who's behind that mask, if it's a good reveal, that's a good villain. But if it's a bad reveal and then he just ends up being like a forgotten villain, then this whole story is kind of wasted, alright? But still, in this issue, we see it split up into kind of 3 parts, alright? So the first part is drawn by George Remez, and that's with the Joker. And all he does, he's at like this bar, and he killed one of the bartenders, and he has all his guys around, and he's talking to this other bartender, the new one, and he's pretty much recapping what we know last issue. Writing's not bad here. Like, he says, he goes through this thing like, 4 people walked into a mansion, they met this guy, the designer, and then he goes on to say he's like the Chester, and he asked to be like the devil or something like that, and then he killed the designer, and it was just like, okay, it's good writing in those 3 pages, but it's kind of a waste in this comic because, one, we already know it, and it's just kind of built up with like, hey, here's your Joker appearance for the issue. That's it. Like, we didn't really need it. I'd rather them showed like maybe a page of the Joker in like that last panel of page 3 where you show him like talking to Punchline, I assume. Like, he says, hey, it's time to do it. Like, the designer is pretty much taking down the city. Like, he actually makes like a metaphor saying like the designer is making the city go to its bones, and now it's time for me to slap some meat on. So pretty much he's gonna carry out his plan after the designer is done. So that's cool and all, but I'd rather they did that for like a page and that's it, instead of wasting like 3 pages of him recapping what we already know. Like, there's no point. And I know comics are supposed to be, a new reader can jump into it, but it's like you're recapping the last issue, but you're not recapping the rest of the story. So even if a new reader jumped on board, they'd still be lost. They'd be like, okay, what's actually going on? And then after they found out, they'd be like, okay, these 3 pages are kind of wasted. But guys, after that, we see it split up into 2 parts. We see Batman fighting off Deathstroke, and Catwoman and Harley Quinn pretty much trying to escape this building that's about to blow up by the designer. These storylines are drawn by 2 different artists, which, guys, before I go into these storylines, let me address the whole artist problem in this whole run so far. When James Tynion jumped on, they had Tynion Daniel on, I was like, that's a great artist, perfect. But then he was out after the first issue, so that was a problem. We had Julian March, which I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but he's okay, but he's not my favorite artist. But at least he was on for about 3 issues. But then George Jemes jumped on. I'm like, okay, another artist shift, which is bad, but also I love George Jemes, so I was cool with it. But now you have George Jemes and these 2 other artists in the same issue, and it's very jarring, it throws off the tone, and it's kind of weird. It's like, why can't DC just put one artist on this book? And guys, it doesn't look like George Jemes is doing that much else right now. Greg Capullo's on the Death Metal, Dark Knight's Death Metal, you have different artists in different books, and it'd be cool if you had George Jemes take up reign on this series, have him be the Batman artist. That'd be awesome, I think so. Or have Tynion Daniel. They're both great artists, and just make them full-time, instead of having them switch out, have these other artists come in. I know they have to meet a due date to have this comic out, but I'd rather them maybe push it, delay it a week, and still have consistent art throughout. That would be good, instead of just switching out these artists and throwing out the tone of the story. But guys, enough with that detour. Let's get to the comic. We see the one part of this issue, we see Batman and Deathstroke fighting. You see Deathstroke, he's been fighting off these drones that Harley has been controlling since last issue, which that's funny and all, but I was kind of alright, I want to see Batman and Deathstroke fight off. And Batman does show up, and his entrance is dope. You see him show up with a bat plane, and Deathstroke's like, where are you, Batman? It doesn't look like you're in your city. And Batman's like, I'm always here. I'm always in this city. I'm always protecting it. And guys, they show up, they fight for a little bit. They actually fight on the bat plane, and it's a good fight and all, but one thing that I have to address is pretty much Batman has this monologue where Deathstroke's fighting off the drones, and Batman's coming closer before they fight, and he's saying how, oh, the designer, he's kind of making it hard for me. He compares it to music and stuff, and at first it didn't make sense to me, and afterwards it kind of did, but it was a lot of dialogue that honestly I just stopped reading the dialogue and just looked at the images. And they just removed that dialogue, James Tynion's dialogue in those first 3 pages of Batman Deathstroke, where Batman's talking about the music and stuff, and how it compares to the designer, and how, Batman's gonna beat him by going with the music. It throws it off a little bit, and I'd rather just see the images of Deathstroke fighting out the drones and Batman coming closer and closer to confronting him. I think that's way better. You see Batman and Deathstroke fight, and Batman actually takes a moment to say, hey, look down there, there's 9 million people, do you really want to cause problems right now and end up killing people? And Deathstroke's like, I don't care. Which that's actually a good answer from him, because why would he care right now? He's on a mission, he's trying to get money from the designer. He doesn't care what happens to other people at this moment. But Batman goes on this whole thing about, you villains have to stop being in my way, I'm just trying to make this city better. And while they're fighting, I'm like, Batman, why are you caring about what Deathstroke thinks? And do you really think Deathstroke's just gonna say, yeah, I'll step out of the way, you do your business, and then we're good? No, that's not how it works at all. And how it's written, it's fine, but at the same time, I'd rather just see him fighting. A lot of the dialogue in this issue, the first half of the issue, is kind of unnecessary, right? It's better just to see the images play out. Which, there's a big thing that I've noticed in some comics, that, some comics that are just pure art, and the writer has the art say for the story, makes the story way better. And it could be the opposite at times too. If you just have just art, it could be bad because it needs some context. But in this story, you don't need as much context in the first half because it's fight scenes, maybe some joke. I get the Joker, he has some context, but with the Batman Deathstroke, you don't need a lot of context there. He's coming, he's fighting, he's trying to get information from Deathstroke about the designer. You can have some dialogue, but put more focus on the art and it could be a better comic. But guys, after that, Batman actually pushes them off the bat plane, they fall, they're about to die, but Batman saves them, and they end up on the ground. And they see the designer. And the designer's like, alright, Deathstroke, you're not getting paid. That's pretty much what happens. And Deathstroke's like, alright, Batman, I guess we're teaming up now because I'm not on the designer's side anymore. And now they're fighting off and trying to protect themselves, and that's when the Riddler comes in on board. which I like this, but it's another thing like it's stalling the story. Let's get to Batman the designer fighting off and reveal this villain, because this is the sixth part of the storyline. Like, that's a lot of parts to just be introduced to your villain in a way. That's a lot of parts. But guys, they're teaming up against the Riddler, and that'll lead to the next issue, so it should be a little exciting and kind of cool. But let's get to the Harley Quinn and Catwoman part of the issue, which I thought was solid. The art was okay there. I thought the art was better than the Batman Deathstroke scenes. Like, that looked really good, especially like the bat plane, the final page. Those pages look really good. But with the Harley and Catwoman part, you see the designer, he like sends like a signal, and he's on like a computer, and he tells Catwoman, alright, you have some time, this whole place is going to blow up, and you're going to die, and I'm going to remove you from the equation. So Catwoman only has a little time. But at the same time, the assassins got away, like Malcolm Merlin, Cheshire. Pretty much the designer released them, said, okay, you're not part of this deal anymore, and they just left, they escaped. But the police officers, or like the people guarding them, are now like pretty much trying to kill Harley Quinn and Catwoman, and Harley Quinn's dealing with that while Catwoman's trying to save them. So it's kind of intense, but I do like their banter. I do like Harley Quinn and Catwoman's banter back and forth. It's actually pretty good. I like it. Like Harley Quinn, even though she's used a lot in comics, like she's oversaturated at times, she's good in this issue, right? I like when she's paired up with Poison Ivy or Catwoman. But guys, they get out, and then Catwoman decides, hey, I know what I'm going to do. My original plan was to make a heist at Wayne Manor, so I'm pretty much going to beat the designer to it and defeat him once and for all. And Harley Quinn's like, alright, I'm in, and that pretty much is going to lead to the next issue. So these are a couple things that are some good storylines that could lead to some great stuff. But in this issue, it felt a little filler, guys. Like, honestly, like Catwoman, Harley Quinn, they found out the assassins are gone, they escaped, and now they have a new plan. That's it for their story. Batman, Deathstroke, they fight off, they team up, they're gonna fight the Riddler now. That's it. And then, oh yeah, Joker recaps the last issue and says, hey, it's time for me to carry out my plan. That's all you need to carry, that's all you get from this issue, really. And though the art looks cool, again, it's a lot of jarring transitions. Like, all the art looks good. I will say that. 3 artists delivered like the best game. But at the same time, it's just very jarring reading the comic, and you see it switch back and forth. But I hope the next issue will be better, because I'm still like hoping this like story arc carries through. It has potential, and James Tynion, I know he can write good because he wrote Detective Comics very well. But next issue we see Punchline and meet with Harley Quinn, so that should be really cool. And maybe we'll finally get like a meetup between Batman and the designer. But for now, this is an okay issue. It could have been better, and I'm gonna give it a 7.4 out of 10. Solid, go check it out. And if you want to keep, like, you should check it out if you've been following the series and following the storyline to keep up with what's going on. But if you want to jump in now, this would not be a good jumping on point. Like, I would wait till we finally see like Batman, the designer, meet up, and actually probably wait till the Joker works. That sounds cool. Like, I'm actually kind of hyped for that more than this whole their dark designs arc. But still, guys, in the comment section below, tell me what you thought about this issue. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What do you think about the design? Do you think it's a good villain, or do you think they should make him better? And are you hyped for like Harley Quinn and Punchline finally meeting? Now guys, if you like the video, give it a big thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to all these great cheese content every day that you don't want to miss. And yeah guys, that's the video. Peace out.